Sure, sir. We can.
Good evening, a warm welcome to all of you to the webinar series hosted by Advocates Association Bengaluru. We have with us today Mr. Vaibhav Iyengar, Advocate High Court of Karnataka. Mr. Vaibhav, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I hope I can do justice to this opportunity.
Certainly, we are sure about it. With great pleasure, now I would like to introduce our today's speaker. Mr. Vaibhav graduated from Bangalore Institute of Legal Studies and worked with litigation team at Pragati Law Chambers at Bengaluru and later with ALMT Legal. Since 2016, he started his own independent practice at Bengaluru and is presently a partner at Iyengar and Pai Advocates. His expertise lies in civil law, consumer protection laws, corporate laws, electricity laws, medical negligence, criminal law, and intellectual property rights litigation. He practices both before the trial court as well as the High Court. He represents doctors before the Karnataka Medical Council, Consumer Forum, and various other forums. Mr. Vaibhav, on behalf of Advocates Association Bengaluru, I extend a warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Welcome to one and all present. I am going to give a topic which is going to be in terms of the rights of doctors and patients. The seriousness of this topic, in my opinion, can be summed up in words of Alan Murray and Alexander McCall Smith. Human body and its working is nothing less than a highly complex machine. In India, there are three medical fields, that is the Western medicine, the Indian medicine, and homeopathy. Each of these sects of medicine are governed under their respective acts. For example, the Western medicine, that is the allopathy. The Indian Medical Council Act 1956 applies to Western medicine. The Indian Medical Council Act 1956 empowers the Medical Council of India to formulate regulations, and the Indian Medical Council regulations therefore came to be formed in the year 2002. This regulation basically covers the Indian Western medicine. In terms of the Indian medicine is concerned, which has Ayurveda, Siddha, Sau, Rigpa, these come under the Indian Medicine Central Council Act 1970. There also the medicine regulations are prescribed, and practitioners of Indian medicine, that is Professional Conduct, Etiquette, Code of Ethics 1982. Homeopathy. The Homeopathy Central Council Act of 1973 was established, and that again empowered for the regulations to come into place, where the homeopathic practitioners, Professional Conduct, Etiquette and Code of Ethics Regulation 1982. The regulations are more or less similar for all three sects, and I would like to go one by one in terms of what the regulations are, in terms of what a physician will have to go through and will have to adhere to. The physician at first will have to be a registered practitioner as prescribed under the regulation. The physician is not allowed to permit any unskilled persons to attend or treat or perform operations upon patients wherever professional discretion or skill is required. Now, in this particular aspect, there needs to be strict adherence to this as regards to any other regulation. The other most important aspect is the physician should neither exaggerate or minimize the gravity of a patient's condition. Physician should not neglect a patient in emergency situations. Physician ought to be modest, sober, patient, and prompt in discharging duty without anxiety. The physician, in certain cases, even the hospital, shall maintain records of the patient for over a period of 3 years and shall provide such record to the patient when asked for within 72 hours. The physician should have the highest assurance in patient care. All these regulations are followed in India in terms of how the doctors will have to go into the aspect of how they are supposed to treat the patient, what is the duty of care, and other aspects. The doctor and patient confidentiality is of utmost importance and will have to be administered very carefully by the doctor. The most important aspect in the present day is that the doctor, that is the physician, is duty bound to inform the state regarding any new case which might affect public health, as the state owes a responsibility to the WHO in terms of the international health regulations. The physician shall not solicit patients. The physician shall not endorse any drug or product of the industry publicly. Now, these particular principles have to be followed by the physician. A failure to follow these regulations can amount to negligence and can also be treated as a misconduct. The other most important factor that is prescribed in the regulation is the unnecessary consultations. The physicians should avoid unnecessary consultation. The tests that are prescribed for should be prescribed in a judicious manner and not in a routine manner. Now, the entire aspect of the medical negligence matters, medical legal matters, arises out of the British law, where the term Boland's test came into existence. But before going to Boland's test, I would like to make a mention of a case law which is Dr. Lakshman Balakrishna Joshi versus Dr. Triyambak Babu, AIR 1969 SC 128. This was the case which basically laid down certain guidelines, three major guidelines for doctors. There, the Supreme Court held that duty of care in deciding whether to undertake the case lies on the doctor. There needs to be duty of care in deciding treatment. There needs to be duty of care in administration of treatment. Now, the facts of the case are very simple here. There was an accident that took place, and the patient, the deceased, died due to fat embolism that was caused due to heavy traction and excessive force without administering anesthesia. The boy had basically met with an accident, fractured his leg, and the physician, as a quick method, tried to pull his leg using excessive force to connect the joints. However, because of this particular action, the boy was in shock and succumbed to the concept of fat embolism. Therefore, the Supreme Court came into the aspect of duty of care. This was later on followed in A.S. Mittal Vatsal State of UP, AR 1989 SC 1570. Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya has stated that duty of care in deciding whether to undertake the case, duty of care in deciding to undertake the treatment, and duty of care in administering the treatment is of utmost importance. In this particular case, there was a large scale event that was conducted for eye testing, and in this particular event, the doctor was scheduled to also administer certain cataract operations. The cataract operations were administered. About after the operations, about 88 patients suffered injuries, suffered certain infections, and thereafter the doctor was considered to be negligent, holding the principle in Dr. Lakshman's case. Now, coming back to Boland's case, where the UK, that is the English court, in 1957 came up with a concept that while diagnosing and treating a patient, the doctor should have a skill of an ordinary competent medical practitioner, and that the standard of care should be at par with the standard procedure general practice at that time of the diagnosis and treatment. So this basically formulated the Boland's test. This was also being followed in India, and in 2005 a landmark judgment came across, which is the Jacob Matthew versus State of Punjab, AIR 2005 SC 3180. This is one of the most important cases in medical negligence matters, as it discusses what is negligence under tort, what is negligence under criminal law, and what is negligence by professionals, and has issued certain guidelines. The facts of the case are very simple. In terms of a patient was admitted in a hospital and was required certain oxygen. The oxygen cylinder that was provided was empty, and in terms of the search of another, in terms of the lookout for another oxygen cylinder, there was no oxygen cylinder available in the hospital. Now here the Supreme Court was to consider whether this was the negligence of the doctor or the hospital who was liable, and whether this amounted to criminal negligence, wherein whether it attracted section 304A of the Indian Penal Code. In terms of the discussion of this particular case, negligence as taught, the negligence as taught at twofold. An act is omitted by a person which a reasonable man would not have done, or an act is done where a reasonable man would not have done. So therefore, in order to be negligence, we need to see that whether there was a duty and whether there was breach of that duty which resulted in the damage. Until and unless these three factors are there, one cannot come to a conclusion that a person or a physician or anybody was negligent. Now, negligence in criminal law was also discussed, where the motive was a primary ingredient, that is the mens rea. The degree of negligence was very high in terms of the fact where if you have to consider a negligence under criminal law, the act of negligence will have to be of very high degree. Until and unless the court is satisfied with that aspect, the court cannot hold any doctor liable under the criminal law. Now, the Honorable Supreme Court in Jacob Matthews case has gone further in terms of negligence by professionals and has laid down three particular aspects. One is that the procedure used by the physician was used in or is being used in usual and normal practice, that the defendant has not adopted it, that is the physician in any case, that the course in fact adopted is one no professional man of ordinary skill would have taken had he been acting in ordinary care. So these particular aspects, all these three aspects were considered by the Honorable Supreme Court in Jacob Matthews case, and also therefore held that a medical practitioner would be liable only where his conduct fell below the standard of reasonably competent practitioner in his field. This is nothing but following the Boehm's test of the English law. The Supreme Court, this aspect I give complete importance to, because the Supreme Court in Jacobs Matthews case went and gave certain guidelines for magistrates and courts and the police to seek appropriate legal opinion from a doctor or panel of doctors before issuing notice or arrest. So this particular aspect will have to be kept in mind, that whenever there is a complaint against a physician or a doctor, the courts and police will have to seek an opinion from a doctor or panel of doctors. The law holds good even as of today. Now, Jacobs Matthews case after 2005 is being referred to constantly in every medical negligence matter. Now, I would like to go into concept of what are the different kind of circumstances which will give us an example as to how medical negligence matters are looked upon, and how the Indian courts are basically administering justice in medical legal matters. Now, there is a concept known as negligence per se, res ipsa loquitur. In 1996, the Supreme Court in Poonam Verma versus Ashwin Patel, that is 1996 for SCC 322. This was considered to be a negligence per se, where homeopathic doctor, in this particular matter, the homeopathic doctor prescribed allopathy medication, which is beyond the scope and skill of the homeopathy doctor. Therefore, the Supreme Court went on to say that allopathy drugs which are prescribed were not within the scope of a homeopathic doctor, and then the doctor was negligent and further directed the council to basically take appropriate action and remove the name of the physician from the register. This particular case gave complete importance to the fact that a physician cannot prescribe any medication or administer any treatment to any patient if the physician is not skilled in that particular field. In 2010 again, this judgment is all the more important because this was the judgment which started considering that Boehm's test required certain evolution, but however, This again falls under the concept of negligence per se, where B. Kishan Rao versus Nikhil Super Speciality Hospital, 2010 5 SCC 513. This was a case where the patient complained of fever, and unfortunately, the physician uh, administered medication for typhoid instead of malaria. So, this was a complete negligence on part of the doctor and therefore was brought into the ambit of negligence per se, and the doctor was held negligent in this particular matter. This case also looks into the aspect of another case, which is the Martin D'Souza judgment. It is an interesting judgment insofar as Consumer Protection Act is concerned. I will discuss Consumer Protection Act a bit later, but this particular judgment is quite important to know because we need to understand what are the guidelines issued to the consumer court while uh, proceeding with medical negligence cases. Martin F. D'Souza versus Muhammad Ishfa, AR 2009 SC 2049. In this particular matter, the Supreme Court proceeded to issue certain guidelines to the consumer forums that no forum will admit a case without there being an opinion from an external expert doctor or panel of doctors. Without this, no notice should be issued to the doctor. So this case came to be questioned in B. Kishan Rao's judgment, where they said when there are matters of negligence per se, the courts need not seek any kind of medical expert opinion, and that Martin F. D'Souza was contrary to what was laid down in Jacob Matthews, where the court there held that only courts and police should consult a doctor or panel of doctors before issuing arrest or before issuing an arrest warrant. Now, this aspect in V. Kishan Rao, as on date, stands as the law. Therefore, in medico-legal matters of consumer forums, there is no requirement in cases where it is obvious of there being any medical opinion that can be sought for. The other important aspect of a regulation where I spoke about maintaining of records. The Supreme Court again in 2019, that is the Federation of Gynecological Societies of India versus Union of India, 2019 6 SCC 283. Here the court, this was basically the court was approached by way of writ in terms of the Parental Diagnostic Techniques Act 1994, where sections 23 1 and 2 of the Act were being challenged. Section 23 1 and 2 of the Act were basically spoke about what and when can a doctor or a physician in this particular matter, this only related to gynecology, when a gynecologist would be suspended and whether his or her name could be taken out of the records. Now, in this particular matter, the Supreme Court went on to hold that maintenance of record is an integral part of medical service. Any failure in maintaining medical records will render a doctor's career in an age. in terms of, when I say in an edge, it's very, very important to note that most of the medical negligence cases are either proved or disproved based on maintenance of record. The other important matter in terms of maintenance of record, an interesting case came up before the Himachal Pradesh High Court. Jagdish Ram was the state of Himachal Pradesh. This was basically the physician, the operating doctor, failed to make a note of what is the required dosage of anesthesia for this particular patient. Unfortunately, the dosage of anesthesia which was given exceeded the permissible limit, which caused the patient's life. Therefore, whether the non-recording of the dosage of anesthesia was held to be negligent or not was considered, and the court went on to hold that the fact that the doctor did not make a note of anesthesia held to be negligent, and the court further went on to consider how a quantum of compensation would have to be considered. The quantum of basic compensation that needs to be considered, the starting point always is the earning of the deceased, the age of the deceased, and whether that earned amount how was it used in terms of personal use and family use. So this particular aspect again came into place before the National Commission on various grounds, on various occasions, and the National Commission till date has been utilizing this particular concept. Now, the third and the most important aspect in terms of what a doctor or a physician or hospital owes to a patient: failure to attend a patient in emergency situations. The Himachal Pradesh court again looked into this aspect of in Gyanchand v versus Vinod Kumar Sharma, AIR 2008 HP 97, which said in this particular aspect, a minor girl was admitted for burns and was shifted from one ward to another instead of being treated for that particular treatment. And because of that shifting, the minor girl lost her life. And this is where the court heavily came upon the doctor, holding him negligent for the act for shifting the minor child from one ward to another instead of administering the child immediately, which could have saved the child. The National Commission, again in Pravat Kumar Mukherjee versus Ruby General Hospital, though the patient had, in this particular matter, though the patient had medical insurance, the hospital basically admitted the patient who had come in for through an accident. This was a case which was decided as an emergency case. The hospital proceeded to administer certain procedures on the patient, and in between the procedure requested the kin of the patient to basically pay the hospital rupees 15,000. Unfortunately, they did not have the money to pay 15,000, though they said that they had insurance. And in fact, in that particular case, the unity of the people in the hospital came through, where a lot of them funded, but unfortunately could fund only about 2,000 rupees. And the hospital was also told that the bike can also be used as a security, and they can proceed with the administration of medicine for the patient. But however, after 45 minutes, the hospital refused and requested the kins to take the patient and transfer him to another hospital. During this transfer, the patient died, succumbed to the injuries, and the National Commission held the doctors negligent and said that at the time of emergency, the doctors will have to treat the patient first, and the monetary aspect will have to be taken into consideration at a later date. Now, I've already with these case laws, it appears as though I've gone one-sided in terms of, it is only the doctor's responsibility. But in this particular matter, in 1996, the National Commission came up with S.C. Tiwari versus Dr. Pranav, where this was a case where the patient was not truthful about his medical history, and the National Commission held that failure to disclose medical history will can and that being one of the reasons for a mishap to the patient, the doctor cannot be held negligent. So it is the patient's duty to at first give all the medical history, and if the patient does not provide all the medical history, then the patient cannot claim any kind of negligence or compensation against the doctor. The other aspect, these are clear cut examples of how the regulations are important. Now, in terms of the aspect of law, where burden of proof comes into place, who has the burden of proving? The first concept of burden of proof is always on the complainant. This was discussed by the Supreme Court in Dr. S.K. Junjunwala versus Dhanvanti Kumar, where the burden of proof was cast upon the complainant, and the court went on to hold that in the event the complainant cannot for once prove before the court that the doctor's act or administration of medicine was negligent or not. This was again the facts of the case was with regard to consent for a patient, where the doctor consented for laparoscopy, but then during the operation, the doctor found that there was swelling in the gallbladder, and therefore the gallbladder would, hysterectomy was to be considered. The only other aspect or the only other way a consent could be taken is that the doctor was to consult with the closest member of that patient. So in this case, the husband was consented, husband gave the consent, and thereafter the doctors proceeded with the operation, the additional operation. In this particular matter, the expert opinion of doctors was called for. The expert opinion of doctors gave a conclusion which assisted the court in holding that the doctor in question acted in a perfectly sane manner and that no negligence can be arrived at. Now, since I spoke about consent, now what are the instances where consent need not be taken? The Supreme Court again in Simrakoli versus Dr. Prabha Manchan, Justice R.V. Ravindran gave a really good verdict in terms of what, in case if there is an additional procedure during an operation, how should a doctor go about it? But however, in this particular matter, this is again a concept of hysterectomy, where during the laparoscopy, excessive bleeding was looked into, and then the mother of the patient was consulted. The mother gave the consent, but however, it was considered that the consent that was sought for by the doctor gave an impression as though without that particular consent, without hysterectomy, the patient would lose her life. This was basically a consent which was taken in terms of force. So therefore, a bit of though the operation was right in the medical sense, the consent that was sought for, the way the consent was sought for was looked down upon, and therefore the Supreme Court went on to compensate the patient. Now, the fifth most important aspect, the quality of care. The quality of care is a responsibility of the hospital and the administration of the hospital. The Supreme Court in 1994 heavily came down upon hospitals in uh, in 1994 for SCC 260, where this was a unfortunate incident and a bizarre incident where a patient was shifted from one hospital to another at least 5 to 6 times on various pretexts that either the hospital was not equipped or the beds were full, which gave arise, which gave a pathway to the Supreme Court to come up with guidelines to show that measures laid down by the court will have to be followed by the government, in which one of the measures that were laid down was that the hospitals should ensure that they are well equipped with enough emergency beds and that the ambulances are well equipped so that in case if the hospital is not well equipped and the patient needs to be transferred, at least the patient can be given enough care during that transfer from one hospital to another. This came across again the Himachal Pradesh High Court in M. Ramesh Reddy versus State of Andhra Pradesh. This was a case where the bathroom was not sanitized, and due to it being unclean, a patient fell and died. And the sanitization facility provided by the hospital was looked down upon, and the hospital was liable to pay compensation to the deceased family. In this particular aspect, I have covered what are the different kind of situations and how important the regulations are. But now comes the main point in terms of Boehm's test. Whether the Boehm's test, the law with regard to Boehm's test, does it stand water even as of today? This was discussed in the most recent matter, that is Maharaja Agrasen Hospital and others versus Master Rishabh Sharma and others. 2026 SCC 501. And this was a case where retinopathy of premature kids, in terms of premature infants, the doctors are supposed to conduct a test in retinopathy, which is known as ROP. And the doctors in this instance failed to conduct the test. However, from the record, it appears that the concerned doctor did conduct retinopathy and had made a mention that the patient's family will have to come for a checkup after 2 weeks. But then this particular aspect was not mentioned in the discharge summary or was not informed to the patient. I'm sorry, to the patient's parents. Now, in this particular matter, five aspects came into play. The first and the foremost important factor in medical negligence and duty of care is that a legal duty of exercise of due care on part of the medical professional is of utmost importance. The failure to inform patient of following up or coming to the hospital or trying to seek any other uh, advice from any doctor, the information to the patient should be given. Now, if that's not done, then it can amount to negligence, and because of that misinformation or non-providing of that information, the patient suffers damage as a consequence of that particular incident. And then if the risk had been disclosed, the patient could have or would have had the opportunity to avoid that kind of an injury. Then the breach of the said duty would give rise to an actionable claim of negligence. Now, this particular aspect is the choice. The patient's right is always that the patient can choose the right of treatment. In Boland's law, that was not considered. That's why the Australian court, in fact, in Australian High Court in 1992, Rogers versus Whitaker. In this particular case, the court there held that the Boland's test had certain irregularity and cannot be considered in its fullest, where the information of risk and the choice of treatment should always be provided to the patient, without which the doctor should not proceed in administering or advising any kind of treatment to the patient. The Indian courts, as of 2010, started mentioning about the requirement to evolve the concept of Boland's test. As I mentioned in Kishan Rao case, and also the latest judgment on that particular matter is Arun Kumar Manglek versus Chirayu Health and Medicare, which basically mentioned that the requirement of evolving Boland's test was the most important aspect to be looked into by the Indian scope. In fact, as of 2015 in England, the English court held that the Boland's test no longer stands water, and that the first and the foremost aspect in medical negligence matter is that whether the patient was informed about the basic medical procedure and whether the patient was given choice of the medical treatment. If this was not followed by doctors, then they would be held negligent. So this aspect was also considered in Maharaja Agrasen Hospital's case, and the court went on to hold that the Boland's test no longer survives and that the four aspects will have to come into consideration. That is, the patient holds the right to choose treatment. Doctors ought to have duty of care in deciding whether to undertake the case, duty of care in deciding treatment, duty of care in administration of treatment. Now, as can be seen, the law as of now stands with these four aspects, that in the event there is non-compliance of these four aspects, the doctors can be considered or can be brought into the ambit of the concept of negligence. I would I would also now come into force whether the medical field or the medical profession is a service under the Consumer Protection Act. The Indian Medical Association versus VP Shanta and others, 1995 6 SCC 651. This was the case where the court was left with only one question, whether the medical profession came into the ambit of service. Now, this aspect, while approaching any consumer forum, is very, very important. This case provides with the guidelines and provides with aspects of when can a patient approach the consumer forum or when the patient becomes a consumer. Now, the instances where the doctor or the hospital charges the patient, or where the patient has insurance and therefore is covered under insurance, in these circumstances, the patient can approach the consumer for us. However, in cases where the treatment was free of cost, but it was free of cost for all in the hospital, or it was free of cost because the patient could not afford, and therefore the doctor went on to proceed with that particular patient without charging. These aspects ensure that the doctor or the medical profession cannot come under the ambit of service. So only if there is consideration, the consideration can be of any kind. If there is consideration, then then the consumer for us will have the power to proceed with a medical negligence case. If not, the patient cannot be held to be a consumer. Now, in this particular aspect, we have covered the regulations, we have covered what are the different case laws, we have covered what is the basic law that is prevalent in India in terms of medical negligence, the 4 points that I would repeat at the end again. The rights of the patient, the rights of the doctors are also looked upon. The most important aspect, and this is something where no doctor should take lightly, is the oath that they have taken. The reason why I say that is that the oath that is there in the present date stems from the concept of Charaka's oath, which came into existence in 1000 BC. This particular aspect was looked into and was taken into consideration as grounds for medical negligence in 1000 BC in terms of Charaka's oath. In the thereafter in 460 BC, the Hippocrates oath came into place, that is the Greek's oath or the Western oath. This particular aspect was thereafter, the oath was thereafter now taken and revised and now is known as the Declaration of Geneva. And these basic oaths were nothing but regulations at that particular point in time. The graduates, graduates of all the Western medicine, Indian medicine, homeopathy, ought to take oath of this, and if they fail in administering their oath throughout their career, they can still be held negligent. And most of the oaths that have been taken by each graduate are regulations, and they are well explained in the cases that I have discussed so far. Just to give an evolution of how the Indian Medical Council Act came into existence, a very interesting aspect. In 1957, the General Medical Council was established in England, and because of the colonial rule, that particular law was also adopted in India. However, because of the presidencies, the Grand Medical College Society in the year 1871 enacted the Coroner's Act. Uh, Thereafter, it was basically used in Bombay. I'm sorry, applicable in Bombay and Calcutta. Subsequent thereto, uh, Bombay Medical Act came into place in 1912, followed by the Bengal Medical Act and Madras Medical Registration Act 1914. Subsequent thereto, the Indian Medical Degree Act 1916 came into place. That is still in existence. However, because the registrations are also prescribed in the Indian Medical Council Act 1956, that is more so neither repealed nor being used completely. But yes, degrees are being issued under the Indian Medical Degree Act. Thereafter came the Indian Medical Council Act 1933, which basically started issuing regulations for doctors. The act basically, even till then, the oath of a doctor was always considered as their regulation. Then came into the aspect of Indian Medical Council Act 1956. From 1956 to 2002, the regulations were not completely in place, and that is why I gave importance to Dr. Lakshman Rao's case, where the Supreme Court held that duty of care in deciding whether to undertake the case, duty of care in deciding the treatment, and duty of care in administration of the treatment has to be followed by the doctor. In terms of this, I would like to close this particular topic by stating that, by reiterating the 4 points which hold good as of today and is the law, where the patient always holds the right to choose treatment. Doctors ought to have the duty of care in deciding whether to undertake the case, deciding treatment, and administration of treatment. Duty of care is of utmost importance. And in conclusion, I would like to state that before filing a case against a doctor, assessment of claim is extremely necessary. Avoiding frivolous cases should be the priority, because we are in the stage where the country needs doctors, and if there are frivolous litigation against doctors, the doctors would not be in the right atmosphere to proceed with their medical field, and that would in turn affect the administration of medical sciences in India to the Indian people. And in the event the doctor does commit negligence, uh, at the same point in time, we cannot let that slip too. So therefore, while proceeding with any kind of negligence against a doctor, the assessment of claim is an extreme necessity. Frivolous cases should be avoided. I thank each one of you for giving me a patient hearing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vaibhav Iyengar, for a extremely informative presentation. Apparently, today is World's Anesthesia Day, so I
Yes,
think it is very appropriate and relevant to discuss this topic.
yes.
And now, can we
I
move on
hope
to
I
the
have done
Q&A?
justice to it.
That we will get to know through our participants' review and response.
Yes,
All
yes.
right, I'm sure it would be positive, and personally, I felt it was very informative, and you have done certainly justice to it. Can we have the first online question, please?
Yes.
All right, we'll start with Satyanarayan Gupta, sir. Yes,
Yes.
sir, I have unmuted you. Kindly, you may ask the question.
Good evening, Vaibhav.
Good evening, sir.
How are you?
I'm good, sir. I'm good, sir.
Yes.
I hope
Wonderful
you're doing well.
presentation. I'm
Thank you.
extremely pleased to hear your bass voice, and you know more than the doctor, if I'm correct.
Sir, I don't think so, but thank you.
Okay, because we have learned many things from you today.
Thank you, sir.
Many things. Okay. Now we have given number of judgments.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible to share with the Mr. Trivikram so that I can take the judgment from Trivikram?
Oh, definitely, sir.
Useful. It will be useful to every advocate, I'll tell you, not only to me.
Yes.
I can take the judgment from Trivikram.
Yes, sir. Certainly. I'll share it.
Now we are talking about the negligence.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes negligence is also on the part of the patients also.
Yes, sir.
If a doctor prescribes medicine for one course for 5 days, but the patient takes only 1 day or 2 days, and he says, "Sir, I have taken the medicine, but I have not been cured." Then how do you establish that the negligence of the client, patient?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So in terms of administering of medication, so this was the issue also in most of the cases, where if the patient does not follow the medication that is prescribed by a doctor, uh, the only aspect, the premise of medical negligence or how a doctor is always secured in terms of his rights is what is written in the prescription. One important, thank you for reminding me, one important thing that I forgot to say in this aspect is the doctor's handwriting. In the regulation, the doctor should always have a clear handwriting in terms of the medication that is prescribed. So I suppose most of it is not there, but then yes, the essence of that is to state that the medication that is prescribed is the right medication and that the patient is required to take. Now, because the patient does not take the medication, the doctor cannot be held liable. Now, even in terms of proving that aspect, as far as the doctor shows to the court that he has prescribed the medication and that medication is as per the standard procedure, he is absolved from the concept of negligence. So therefore, it is the burden again of the patient that I have taken all the tablets, and because I have not, because the doctor has not prescribed the right medication, I would, I am in this particular position or something.
Okay, Vaibhav, one more question.
Yes,
You
sir.
have just said in the case of a consumer forum cases,
Yes.
if the hospital is running a free of cost, if
Yes.
they have not taken the money, then it will not come under the Consumer Protection Act.
Yes, sir.
Right, sir?
Yes, sir.
Suppose if they are taken for expenses like a screening or checking or like that.
No, it still comes under service.
Okay.
So it has to be extremely free of cost. Now, for example, if the hospital again charges for some patients and doesn't charge for another patient, they will still be under the ambit of Consumer Protection Act. It is only where the hospital is running completely free of cost, or where the doctor has looked into the patient and if the patient cannot afford, in those specific circumstances alone, a Consumer Protection Act cannot be applicable.
Okay. Thank you, Vaibhav. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vaibhav, in continuation of the same question, suppose a patient takes a medication free of cost at a government hospital, but he would have paid a very nominal fee for the registration as a patient, all right, say about 30 rupees or 50 rupees. Still,
Yeah.
would he come
Yes,
within the
he would.
ambit of, he will?
He would.
All right.
It
Thank you
has
so
to
much.
be extremely free of cost.
As in zero rupees
Yes,
paid.
yes.
All right, thank you. We have few offline questions before we take up other online questions. One offline question by anonymous attendee. Is it possible to sue the regulatory authority for the failure of any medical institute to maintain minimum standards in the matter efficiency of graduates and postgraduates churned out by it?
Yes, sir. It is quite possible. The only aspect would have to be in terms of medical hospitals. The Medical Council Act prescribes basically has certain guidelines, and circulars are issued day in and day forth in terms of how each hospital should conduct itself. And in case if the regulations are not followed by the hospital, then obviously the hospital will come under scanner. But in terms of not following, there is a new act which has come into place in 2019, where the government has the power to suppress the medical council for a period of 3 years and appoint its own body which will take over the powers of the medical council. So, therefore, in terms of this, there can be administration of hospitals and universities and every other.
We'll have to mute Mr. Satyanarayan Gupta, sir. Just a second. Yes, I have unmuted him.
Yeah. So
Sorry, I
as
have muted him.
so then the if it's a medical council of India, then Article 32 will come into play.
All right, thank you. Now, Advocate Shashank Kumar has a question. During COVID-19, several patients were refused to be admitted in the hospitals. By virtue of no timely care of the patients and rejection of patients have died. What criminal action can be taken against the hospitals and doctors? Under what provision can a hospital's license be cancelled? So he has two-fold questions. First one, under what provision of law hospital's license can be cancelled, and the second one is what criminal action can be taken against the doctor individually and hospital
So
in general as well.
okay, insofar as the provision of law is concerned, I will just share it with you at a later date because I'm not quite aware of the provision in terms of cancellation of license. But insofar as the hospital's inability to cater to COVID patients, they would be held responsible on two grounds. They'll have to show that they did not have the number of beds, or they'll have to prove to the court that they did, or the council, uh, that they did not have the number of beds or the facility to treat COVID patients. Because what the practical aspect of this is also something which is important to be looked into. Uh, the hospital runs with other patients also, and unless and until there are demarcations in the hospital in itself, uh, treatment for COVID might be very difficult because that would give rise to spreading of the virus to the patients that have already been there. So these practical factors will have to be looked into, especially when it comes to private hospitals. But now I have been informed that the hospitals are taking care, and I should make a mention. I mean, this is my personal knowledge that the Apollo Third Block Jayanagar is a completely COVID hospital, so which is a very good thing that they're doing, where only COVID patients are being administered. So, I mean, obviously, with this population and practical issues, we'll have to look into each aspect and then hold the hospital accountable.
But won't you think that at any point of time they can always window dress and say that they did not have accommodation?
See, that's something which is going to be there, but you will obviously put the hospital under scanner. I mean, if we also know notices were issued by the government to the hospitals also, uh, calling upon them to treat why they are not treating COVID patients or admitting COVID patients. But more or less now the situation seems to be going smoothly. But yeah, that's
Here's
what
an
it's been.
additional question. In fact, some patients did not have COVID, but they were not admitted in the hospital because they did not have COVID negative certificate. So, what criminal action
See, this
can
cannot
be
be a
taken?
criminal. There cannot be criminal action in this particular aspect. But yes, there are hospitals which where they are requesting for certificate negative certificates. But that is again, sir, the situation is such that I think it is of necessity, because in case if the patient is tested positive, then the whole system will go for a complete spin. So it's a very dicey situation. So I don't think that it is fair to jump to a conclusion at this particular matter. In this particular matter,
Right.
I mean, I'm supporting the hospitals, I know, but
Apparently, that was my thought as well because I just
no,
said
no,
the
no.
same
I'm
thing.
aware. I'm aware of that. But see, the practical aspect of running a hospital will also have to be considered, because then what will happen is the patients who are in the hospital, who are admitted in the hospital, will go against the hospital again. I mean, see, you'll have to look at both of their rights at the end of the day. If it's a COVID-free hospital and other patients are being admitted and being administered, then it has to. I mean, you will have to look at it both ways. It is not fair to put it either way.
All right. Chandani Singh has a question. Each hospital does have different bills for expenses made for COVID patients, because I see different hospitals charge different bills.
That depends on each administration of the hospital. Uh, there, there's nothing that can be done about it.
And Mr. Chandrasekhar has a question. Recent Minto Eye Hospital incident where some
My
patients lost.
1 second. My senior also seems to have a question. He's raising his hand.
I will certainly give him opportunity after you answer this question.
Yes, yes.
Uh, Mr. Chandrasekhar has this question. Recent Minto Eye Hospital incident where some patients lost eye in an eye operation. What are the records for doctors as well as patients?
Oh, yeah. So this basically squarely falls within the case law where the Supreme Court, just a minute. Um, just a minute. Yeah, the 1989 SC 1570, AS Mittal versus State of UP. AR 1989 SC 1570. So very similar, where in this matter also, as I explained, a large-scale eye testing event which resulted in 88 cataract surgeries, and all of the patients who underwent the cataract operation were infected, and thereafter the Supreme Court held that compensation will have to be given, and that it was negligent. So this squarely falls under this aspect.
All right. Now I would like to unmute Mr. Ajay Nandalike. Yes, you are unmuted. You may kindly pose your question.
Hi, Vaibhav.
Yes,
Good
sir.
presentation.
Thank
I
you.
just had one question. See, your entire presentation focused on doctors, okay? Like doctors and medical negligence. Now, see,
Yes.
the larger amount of issues which are arising are vis-a-vis the hospitals. See, I'll explain this. So, even if I want to enter into a hospital to get treatment, I may not meet a doctor. A receptionist may say, sorry, we don't have beds. Or, they'll look at if I'm coming in one tattered shirt, they'll say, no, this is not a hospital for you. Or they'll say something of that sort. That's one thing. Second thing is that, even maintenance of records, etc. See, most of the doctors who are there in hospitals are on consultancy basis. So they are not the people who are required to maintain records. The records are required to be maintained by the medical superintendent of the hospital, whom you will never even see. So now in that situation, do you see negligence is very difficult to prove vis-a-vis the doctor? See, because see, one thing what we do is we also make the hospital a party. Now, typically the tendency is to make the doctor a party, initiate a complaint before the KMC. To some part, you dealt with that aspect. So, I'll say that he's not performed according to the professional standards and all that. You dealt with the standards. But vis-a-vis hospitals, there is only the Karnataka Medical Establishments Act, but that does not deal strictly with unfair trade practices. So, if I go, and it's very difficult for me to get transparency when it comes to all of these aspects. See, because even to give the entire medical file, see, it happened to when a relative of mine was in the hospital. What was happening is they are saying they're coming and testing the blood every 5 times in a day, and they're charging 150 rupees for that testing of blood to see the sugar content. But the nurse never came.
Very strange.
So it happens quite a few times.
Yeah.
So
this is where I was. Sorry.
Yeah, no, the point I'm saying is that hospital, how do you hold the hospital liable? How do you hold the founders liable? See, because it's very difficult to make out a criminal case or a case before the KMC. See, because I may get compensation. I may not be after compensation. I want to teach these people a lesson. See, how many people will have the patience to go to court and wait and consume a phone? How do I go against the hospital?
Now, see, the aspect of maintaining records is the most important aspect for a doctor. All right. The patient records. Now, for example, if I am a treating doctor and if I say that I will have to administer certain thing, I will first have to write the date and then write that I have prescribed so and so, so and so. So that the duty doctor, when you are an admitted patient, these are situations when you are admitted in a hospital. So that the doctor, where you have several doctors consulting, the other doctor will know what exactly is prescribed, what time you were checked, and everything. And these are the records only maintained. Now, in case if you have to get a blood test done, the operating doctor or the administering doctor will have to make a note in the patient chart sheet. Without that, they cannot test any kind of blood test or they cannot administer any test. So there has to be a mention of that particular test by the administering doctor.
But see, they give us only the discharge summary when we leave. They don't give us the...
So yes, they will give you the discharge summary within 72 hours from the request, from the date of the request. The hospital authorities or the doctor, whichever the case may be, is duty bound to give the document. If they don't provide the patient chart, patient records, everything. So if they don't do that, it will have an adverse effect on them at the stage of misconduct for the KMC.
No, but see, they'll give me a discharge summary and they will take a challan from me saying I have received all the documents. Like, see, when I'm a layman, I will not know, right? So I have to ask for the patient's note sheets, is it? Only then I will know the entire note sheet,
Yes,
whatever.
yes.
Thank you. I understand.
Yes, and also one other important aspect which I would add on, which is a safety measure for doctors because of this also, is that it's always better to write the sequence numbers. See, the reason being there are a lot of cases which have gone against the doctors because there was no sequence and there no collaboration of evidence or tests that were conducted. So therefore, in terms of these aspects, the patient's rights are vast because they are the master in terms of it's their life at the end of the day. So in terms of this, patient has every right to ask for all the documents. And in terms of the regulation, within 72 hours from that request, they will have to provide. Otherwise, it will be construed as a misconduct.
Thank
So,
you.
so if they don't do that, then you will have to seek for medical negligence, obviously.
All right, thank you. Advocate Lavanya has a question. In wake of COVID-19, our government has issued the telemedicine guidelines permitting the RMPs to offer teleconsultation as per Appendix 5 of the IMC Act. Does it mean the future of our healthcare?
It depends on when we get the vaccine and what it is. But so far as my personal view is, it can be the future of healthcare, like how it is with us advocates having virtual hearings. So, so it can be, and there's nothing wrong about it.
Right. We have few online questions, but before that, I think we have a very relevant question asked by Mr. Kumar Sunil.
Yes.
Is it possible to sue a person who is not qualified to run the hospital and he is running the hospital in the name of different person? As an advocate, I am running a hospital, but say a clinic in my name, but apparently I'm not a doctor.
See, you
Qualified.
can see companies run hospitals, so you can run a hospital, but you can't administer a patient.
Right.
You can be in charge of the office of the hospital, but that does not give one person to a right to administer the patient. So the issue comes here whether that person has administered the patient or not. If he is not administered, then anybody can run a hospital.
Right. So Mr. Mahesh Babu has a question. Sir, I have unmuted you. Mr. Mahesh Babu.
Good evening, sir. So,
Good evening, sir.
hello. Can you
Yes,
hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. I have two simple questions.
Yes.
One is one of the general complaints against the corporate hospitals, sir.
Yes, sir.
That is, I am given to understand that doctors are given some targets to do certain types of operations, treatments like knee replacement, cardiac surgery, etc., like angioplasty, etc. Is this according to the law?
Sir, I'm not too
Or
sure
can
about
it be
the
stopped?
Sir, I'm not too sure about the targets, but if there is such an implication of targets, that's not permissible under laws.
Yeah.
But
My
yeah, because then it will avoid to unnecessary administration of patients, which is again contradictory to the regulations.
yeah. One more question is regarding Dr. Modi's eye operations. Sir. Was he qualified, sir, to do the operations?
In terms of which, sir? Sorry.
Dr. Modi's eye operations. Very famous surgeon was there, no? Dr. Modi, eye
So,
operations, eye camps and all he was doing.
okay, I'll have to plead ignorance on this.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Sorry.
So Dr. Modi's hospital is in, I think, Rajaji Nagar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not too sure.
Yes, sir. That's all, sir.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Right, sir, thank you. Now we have Mr. K.R. Ashok Kumar, who's been waiting for quite some time. Yes, sir, I have unmuted you. You may kindly pose your question.
Sir, good evening. Very nice. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Very nice presentation. I have
Thank you, sir.
personal experience in COVID-19.
Okay, sir.
I have plenty, but I have reserved to 3. Disparity of rates to the
Yes.
BBMP patients and private patients who are having insurance coverage. This is unfair trade practice according to me.
Yes, sir.
Shall I repeat, sir?
No, I got you.
If
I
a
got
room charge is
The difference
What
in
is the
charges.
remedy, sir? Is it not an unfair trade practice?
It is,
Same
sir.
patient, a same patient who is next to me is having BBMP rates. For me, it is the special rates.
Yes, sir.
Same
I mean,
treatment. There is no increase or decrease.
yes, sir. That has been the bone of contention for quite some time in this phase of COVID. Um, there are two concepts to be looked into here, sir. In terms of BBMP based patients, they are obviously trying to, I mean, they would have a better rating system. But in terms of private patients, the concept of you accepting the treatment will come into play. So it's going to be a tough case in court, but yes, there can there there can be a ground for unfair trade practice. In terms of patients within the hospitals, see now, for example, if one hospital has a different rate for different patients, then that is unfair trade practice. But if it has a common um, um, uh, a common rate, then it would not amount to unfair trade practice.
Right. Thank you so much. We'll take up two more questions. One question by Mr. K. Mallikarjun and last question by Mr. Jayasimha. And
Yes.
we'll wind up today's session. Mr. Mallikarjun, I have unmuted you. Kindly pose your question.
Good evening, Vaibhav.
Good evening, sir.
Very good presentation, very holistic approach. Slow and steady will always wins the race. So you have given a wonderful thought about medical negligence. Now we come to two questions, Mr. Vaibhav. See,
Yes.
let us in a public domain, likewise in YouTube, I am a paid subscriber for YouTube. Is it not?
Yeah.
So many doctors, so-called doctors, I don't know whether they are qualified or not qualified. They are giving so many medical advices on the public domain. So people like me and so many other persons would have been followed that medications. They could have take that medications. If any consequence thereafter happens. Say I am a paid subscriber to YouTube. In terms, doctors is also earning by single view like that. Whether how do we go with that? The first question. The next questions. Nowadays in a Play Store, we are downloading so many online applications because Procto doctors and MFine like that. Only we are on online consultation. Without seeing the patients long way from, they are giving treatment only on the basis of the explanation which has been exchanged by the patients. Now, how do we go? How do we treat the doctor if anything consequences are happen like that only?
Sir, definitely. If I'll first answer the second aspect of online consultation. Online consultation will be administered only when there is no requirement of meeting in person per se. But if there is requirement of a in-person checkup, then the doctors generally call in the patients. But if they don't do that, then obviously they are held negligent. Because the first and the foremost thing is, as I kept repeating, duty of care in deciding whether to undertake the treatment and duty of care in deciding the treatment. That duty of care is the most important. So you will have to call in your patient in case if you need a one-to-one, if there is a requirement of a one-to-one consultation. Now, insofar as YouTube is concerned, or any kind of online subscription is concerned, it is very important to. At first, I think this would. I don't know if it's a direct YouTube thing because I haven't ventured into it. I'm not too sure about it. But if at all there is a online setup, the vicarious liability aspect will come into play, where the doctor would have been associated with that particular online platform and would try to be giving some kind of advice, but it would not be advisable to prescribe yourself the medications based on that advice, because it's completely I mean, you wouldn't know who that person is at all. But yes, you can approach for negligence if they make a claim that if you consume this medication, you would do well, or you would recover. And if you don't recover, then it might be a problem for the doctor.
And I would add on that the responsibility of the viewer as well. Do not watch any videos unless otherwise it is uploaded by a channel monitored and administered by a hospital. Because
Oh, it is.
most of the times Tom, Dick and Harry is giving a lot of suggestions and medications today. So we will have to be double cautious when we are watching these videos. That is my sincere advice.
Oh, 100%, sir. I mean, this advice is the most important advice because if at all you need a treatment to your body, it's better you go to a personal doctor and not live your life online. Everything is not virtual. So,
So we'll take up one last question. Of course, I see a lot of people raising their hand, but due to the time constraint, we'll be able to take up one last question. I saw Mr. Jaisima who was raising his hand. Mr. Jaisima, if you are still there, I'm just unmuting you. You may quickly ask your question. I'm not able to see you here, Mr. Jaisima. Yes, I have unmuted you. You may quickly ask one question.
Sir, I have a small question. Can you throw some light on legal aspects of medical negligence by government hospitals and its doctors? This is what I want to ask.
so it is the same, irrespective of whether they are doctors in a private hospital or in a government hospital.
Is there any special law? Additionally, we have to look at when it comes to government hospitals, because government hospitals sometimes they will not charge anything and they will charge something for patients with the APL and EPL cards. That is what I want to ask.
Yes, sir. So that's the whole point. So the non-governmental organizations, I'm sorry, the government organizations where they administer a patient free of cost, then again Consumer Protection Act will not come into play. But if there is misconduct by a doctor as per the regulations, then you can approach the KMC. Indeed. But your civil law remedy is always open in terms of you can approach the civil court for compensation. But insofar as consumer court is concerned, if the medication or treatment is free of cost, free of cost for everyone in the hospital, then you cannot approach the consumer court. Your civil law remedy is always open.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Vaibhav, thank you so much for a very informative presentation. On behalf of Advocates Association, my sincere thanks to you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So with this, we will be signing off today's session. Thank you so much.